Today, we're going to be talking about public safety and storm chasing. But before we can do that, we need to know the difference between weather and climate. Weather is the day to day changes in the atmosphere. For example, it is going to be sunny today, or it is going to rain today. While climate is the weather in a span of over at least 30 years. Here in Ohio, we have a temperate climate. We have all four seasons. Here are all of the weather hazards that we are going to talk about today. Though it may surprise you, heat waves are actually the most dangerous type of weather hazards. And hurricanes are the ones that cause the most damage and therefore are the most costly to the areas that it hits. And here in Ohio, we can get all of these weather hazards except for hurricanes. The first one we're going to talk about is heat waves, which is a period of abnormally hot weather that generally lasts more than 2 days. For example, the heat wave in France in 2023. Up here is an image of a railroad track that the metal got so hot during the heat wave that it started to warp. And on the bottom here is a picture of a road that buckled due to the extreme heat. Next are ice storms, also known as glaze events or silver storms, and it is a type of winter storm that is characterized by freezing rain. A storm can only be a silver storm if there is an accumulation of at least a quarter inch of ice on exposed surfaces. These types of storms can become dangerous because after a while, the accumulation can build up and break off tree branches, can break power lines. And the amount of ice that is on the ground can cause people to slip and fall. There can be power outages. It can damage roofs, it can damage cars, and it can injure people. Next are ice jams. Ice jams happen when long cold spells causes rivers and lakes to freeze. And then either there's a rise in the water level or the ice begins to thaw and break into large chunks, which become jammed at man-made and natural obstructions. Ice jams can act as a dam, resulting in severe flooding. Up at the top is a picture of a minor ice jam, and down here is an image of a severe ice jam. And this one at the bottom is in Buffalo, New York. Lake effect snow is produced during cooler atmospheric conditions, when a cold air mass moves across long expanses of warmer lake water. The lower layer of air, heated up by the lake, picks up water vapor from the lake and it rises through colder air. The vapor then freezes and is deposited on the leeward shores. And leeward means the shore that the storm is heading towards. Every year, you'll hear reports of Buffalo, New York getting feet and feet of snow after lake effect snow events. This is because generally in the United States, the wind patterns move from west to east, meaning usually the cool air will move from the west side of Lake Erie, pushing forward to the east side, creating lake effect snow. This effect is also why most of the times Buffalo gets ice jams on Lake Erie, while the eastern and southern side of Lake Erie typically doesn't get a lot of lake effect snow and ice jams. It is still possible, depending on changing weather patterns. The last type of winter weather hazard we're going to be talking about is blizzards. A blizzard is a storm which contains either large amounts of snow or blowing snow with winds in excess of 35 miles per hour and visibilities of less than a quarter of a mile for an extended period of time, usually at least 3 hours. You either need one or the other for it to be considered a blizzard, but there are some instances where you will have both. Next, we are going to be talking about the two types of flooding. Normal flooding is when there is an overflow of water onto normally dry land, like yards, ditches, fields, over roads. This is caused by rising water in existing waterways, such as rivers, ditches, and streams. These events can last days or weeks. Flash floods are caused by heavy rainfall in a short period of time, less than 6 hours generally. It is usually characterized by raging torrents after heavy rains that rip through riverbeds, urban streets, and mountain canyons that takes everything in its path with it. An example of a flash flood recently would be in 2022 in Jackson, Kentucky. Next, we are going to be talking about droughts. And there are three types of droughts: meteorological droughts, agricultural droughts, and hydrological droughts. But since we're talking about weather hazards, we are going to be focusing on meteorological droughts, which is a prolonged period of abnormally low rainfall leading to a shortage of water. An example will be Lake Mead, which there's dozens of reports last year talking about how Lake Mead has over time been losing volume due to the low rainfall in Nevada. Up here at the top is a comparison from the late 90s, the mid 2000s, to 2023. And here at the bottom, you could see where Lake Mead usually sits to where it sits today. Next, we're going to be talking about the different types of damaging winds. And we rate winds using the Beaufort scale of wind force. The first type of damaging wind is downbursts. And downbursts are sudden downrushes of rain-cooled air descending from a thunderstorm. And there are two types: microbursts, which are up to 2.5 miles long and can last up to 15 minutes, and macrobursts, which are over 2.5 miles long and can last up to 30 minutes. For a long time, it was thought that downbursts do not exist. But Ted Fujita, who was an engineer who studied the bombings of Hiroshima and the damage it caused, went to a plane crash and saw that the damage of the plane crash was very similar to that after the bombing of Hiroshima. Using that, he was able to figure out that downbursts exist, and that was the reason why the plane crashed. Next is straight line winds, which is a form of a downburst, and it is a term used to define any thunderstorm wind that is not associated with rotation. Sometimes there's difficulty trying to figure out whether it is straight line wind damage or tornadic wind damage. Up here at the top, you see that all of these trees are pointed in the same direction. Now, if this was tornadic damage, the trees would be in every direction, not all going one way. So this is straight line wind damage. Next are derechos. A derecho is a widespread, long-lived straight line windstorm that is associated with a fast-moving group of severe thunderstorms. In order for a derecho to be a derecho, there needs to be gusts of 58 miles per hour or more. The damage length must extend more than 400 miles, and the width of the storm must be 16 miles wide. And this is a picture of a derecho that went by my house in 2022. Next, we're going to talk about haboobs. And haboobs are a wall of dust that is pushed out along the ground from a thunderstorm downdraft at high speeds. These only happen in dry environments, so either an arid place like Arizona, New Mexico, or an area that has been affected by a drought. Next, we're going to talk about lightning. Lightning is an electrical discharge through the atmosphere between two electrically charged regions, and there are four main types of lightning. There is intracloud, which means the lightning bolts are inside of one cloud; intercloud, which means the lightning bolts go from one cloud to another; cloud to ground and ground to cloud lightning are self-explanatory; and then air discharge, which is when the lightning bolt does not hit anything, it does not touch another cloud, it just goes out into empty airspace. And then there are rare lightning events, like ball lightning, shown down here, and transient luminous events. And all of these over here are extremely rare to get photographs of. Next, we're going to talk about hail. Hail starts off as regular old raindrops that get sucked up into the updraft of the thunderstorm. They go up into the cloud, freeze, fall back down. And depending on the strength of the updraft, they can continue on and on and on, becoming larger. Eventually, the hail becomes too large for the cloud to hold and falls to the earth. Next, we're going to be talking about tropical cyclones. The lowest level is a tropical depression, which is a tropical cyclone with sustained winds of 23 to 38 miles per hour. And a tropical storm is a tropical cyclone with sustained winds of 39 to 73 miles per hour. And the highest level of tropical cyclones are hurricanes, which have winds of 74 plus miles per hour, and they are rated using the Saffir-Simpson scale. Hurricanes can be rated from category 1 to 5. The eye of the hurricane is very different from the actual cyclonic part of it. In the cyclone part of the hurricane is where you'll get the very strong winds and heavy rain. But when you get to the eye of the storm, it is very calm. And we get this thing called the stadium effect. Last, we're going to talk about tornadoes. And tornadoes are violently rotating columns of air extending from a thunderstorm, which are in contact with the ground. Though tornadoes usually only produce one at a time, there are rare events where you can get twin tornadoes. In order for tornadoes to happen, you have to have moisture, a converging warm and cold air mass, instability, lift, and wind shear. And all of these come together, we get rotation, and eventually a tornado drops. A very good example of seeing how tornadoes have multiple vortices is Reed Timmer's footage he got of the Andover tornado in 2022. Tornadoes are rated using the Enhanced Fujita Scale, or the EF scale. Now, the EF scale is based purely off of damage that the tornado does to structures and trees. It ranges from EF0 to EF5, but if a tornado doesn't hit any structures, it gets rated as an EFU, which means its actual strength is undetermined. Over here, I have pictures of both the El Reno 2013 tornado and the Andover 2022 tornado. And even though these two storms look absolutely nothing alike, they are both rated EF3. Even though El Reno is much, much larger than the Andover storm, it was in a very rural area, so it did not have the chance to hit a lot of buildings and other structures that the EF scale uses. So it was rated an EF3. While the Andover tornado went through town, it hit more structures. Therefore, it was also rated an EF3. Now that we've talked about weather hazards, we can talk about storm chasing. And storm chasing is the pursuit of weather phenomenon. I personally enjoy looking for supercell structure and tornadoes, but there are storm chasers who will chase any and everything from flash floods to lightning to blizzards to tornadoes to hurricanes to hail. But no matter what the type of weather phenomenon, there is a storm chaser out there who loves it and will go to try to find it. Ohio gets a lot of what are called QLCS, or quasi-linear convective system tornadoes, which is when a squall line produces a tornado. You'll get this rear inflow notch, and here, this little appendage here is the radar signature for a QLCS tornado. Even though Ohio gets a lot of QLCS tornadoes, we also have the ability to get supercell tornadoes. For example, the Xenia tornado in 1974 and the Lakeview tornado that happened this year in 2024. QLCS tornadoes can happen anywhere, just like supercell tornadoes can happen everywhere, though chasing in Ohio is slightly more difficult because most of the time we get these QLCS storms. They're very hard to chase because they are a blip on the radar. They can be there for one scan and gone the next, or they can drop down and come back up so fast that they never show up on the radar scans at all. And over here is a QLCS tornado that my dad got while he was coming home from work one day. In order to storm chase, we got to know where we want to go to actually storm chase. To do that, we look at different weather models that are used to predict where and when storms will happen. And then when we're out on the actual chase, we use radars in order to keep track of the movement of the storms. The equipment I use, of course, we need a car to be able to get to the storms. And then you need a camera of some kind, whether that's a GoPro, a dash cam, a video or still camera, or your phone. We use maps, and whether it is a GPS type of map or if it's a physical paper map, we use radios in order to keep in contact with people in the area that we're chasing in and as a way to contact the National Weather Service. And we also use our computers. That way we can continuously look at radar and satellite images. There are a lot of people that get concerned or worried during severe weather situations, but there's no need to be scared as long as you're prepared. During severe weather, you've probably heard your local meteorologists use terms like a watch, a warning, or maybe sometimes an emergency. And it's important to know the difference so that way you can be properly prepared for the situation at hand. And for this example, we're going to be using tornadoes. If a tornado watch is issued, it means that the storm could produce a tornado. That does not mean that a tornado is going to happen for sure, but it means that all of the ingredients that are needed for a tornado to happen are in the environment. A tornado warning means that there is a radar indicated tornado. And this means that with radar scans, it has been shown that there is rotation in a storm. This means that the storm is very capable of producing a tornado because it already has rotation. But it does not mean that there is for sure a tornado on the ground. And then a confirmed warning means that a trained storm spotter, like me, has personally seen the tornado and has reported it to the National Weather Service or the local media station. And the last one is emergencies. And a storm emergency is only issued if the storm is extremely violent and is a threat to human life and will cause severe damage. These are also known as PDS storms or particularly dangerous situations. Have a plan. You do not need to be scared of severe weather or any weather hazard as long as you have a plan to keep yourself safe. Whether that is knowing there's a safe spot in your house or knowing that there's somebody or someplace you can go to be in a safe location, it is important to know that information ahead of time. And that does not just mean where you live. It also means it's important to know the tornado shelter plans everywhere you go. Whether you're going to the supermarket or you're on vacation, it is important to know where there is a safe location to go in case something was to happen. In case there is a severe weather situation, there are many ways that you can be updated about the weather. You could listen to it on the radio. You could have a weather radio. You could watch the local news. You could look at the weather apps on your phone, and you can make sure that the weather warnings are turned on your phone. Because just like an Amber Alert, your phone will always go off if there's a tornado warning in your area as long as you have that setting turned on. If you are interested in subscribing to my channel or following me on any of my social media, all of the links are here on the screen, and thank you for watching.